In the news this week, remembering Jamie Schuster, tributes flowing over the death of a much-loved mental health and cultural advocate in Perth. An exclusive interview coming up.
Also tonight, changes looming over electoral boundaries as some seats might face the axe. And the High Voltage Festival tears up the streets of Fremantle with rock music. And later, Dr. Andrew Miller's comment.
This is The Evening News with Ivan Loom and Maliva Thorne.
Good evening. Tributes are flowing in as the Perth community remembers Jamie Schuster, a FIFO worker, mental health advocate and a pivotal leader of Haka for Life. Mr. Schuster passed away tragically at the age of 46. Haka for Life is known for their Haka corroboree performances at the Anzac Day ceremonies. Jamie's close friend Leon Rury speaks exclusively to our reporter Madeline Lombardi about his death and the legacy he left behind. First Nations viewers are warned that the following story contains images of a person who has passed away.
We've recently learned of the passing of Jamie Schuster, a leader in the Haka for Life movement. Can you tell us about how his death has impacted the Haka for Life community and your community as well?
Yeah, it's been emotional. You're asking the question. We're standing on a spot where I met Jamie here, literally right here, on Anzac Day 2017, and it's been heartbreaking. It's been hard for many of our Haka for Life family and our extended community here in Perth, our Noongar community. We created the world's first ever Haka and corroboree together as well, and he was an instrumental part of that. We travelled to America together. We would have done the world's first Haka on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, as well as the first ever Anzac Day Haka for Life, which really birthed the opportunity for Haka and corroboree to be, to be able to be present on Anzac Day. But it's been deeply emotional. It comes in waves, and times of sadness, much sadness there at this time. But sadly, it's something that happens far too often in our country, and it's something that we're still a strong advocate to, stand that people choose life. This passing of Jamie is a prime example that suicide does not discriminate. People, no matter who you are or where you are, struggle with different things in life, and our brother Jamie was no different to me or to you or to anybody out there. So it's important for us to be able to create these conversations.
I want to ask you next, in your own words, what were some impactful things Jamie implemented as a leader in the Haka for Life community and group in celebration of his life?
Yeah, he was really dedicated to what we call rangatahi, to young people, to the youth. He just had a real heart for the youth, and part of his dream was to see that we pass culture on to youth here, that they had a foundation to create and build their lives from. He instilled culture in us, the importance of what we call tikanga, of protocols and why they remain in place. There was a certain level of I'd say professionalism, but a certain level of commitment that Jamie brought toward our cultural exchanges. That I remember as an example, just here behind us at Kings Park in 2018 for the world's first ever Haka and corroboree for an Anzac Day service, and I'll forever remember.
With the state election less than 2 years away, major political parties are preparing their arguments over electorate boundary changes and abolitions. Perth residents may gain an extra politician from the regions as population continues to grow, while the Northwest Central electorate might face the axe. Veteran political commentator Peter Kennedy explains what this means for you.
The major parties are divided in their approach to the redistribution of the electoral boundaries, which is underway already. The Labor Party wants to abolish one seat in the regions, that's Northwest Central, and add the seat to the metropolitan area. The Liberal and National parties are agreed. They don't want an abolition of any country seats or any rural seats. They believe that the current mix between metropolitan and regional is about right. They just want metropolitan seats mainly, some metropolitan seats to be readjusted. In fact, about half the voters in Western Australia, if the Liberal and National Party views are correct, and also Labor, could find themselves in new seats when the electoral commissioners complete the job. But as far as the Liberal Party is concerned, major changes in the south part, in metropolitan area, As far as Labor is concerned, there'd be major changes in the east, around the Byford corridor, where there are growth areas. Also, with regard to the Liberals and the Nationals, the growth areas in the southwest, Busselton, Margaret River, those areas, there'd be changes there. The Warren Blackwood seat, for instance, would move across to the coast south of Busselton, and there'd be other changes affecting Roe on the eastern side of Albany Highway. But the process will take the bulk of the rest of the year. The electoral commissioners, headed by former Supreme Court Judge Eric Heenan, will consider all the submissions. Right now there are public submissions, another week for public submissions, and then they will consider just what the various proposals have been, and they'll come up with preliminary findings a bit later in the year. However, a major change in the electoral boundaries could occur if that country seat is abolished and an extra seat is added in the country. When the process is completed on December the 1st, then the parties will go about selecting their candidates for the next state election. So, very significant process underway and could have ramifications for the parties and quite a few sitting members of Parliament. Peter Kennedy, WAMN News.
Hi there. Are you looking for a new home or want to refinance your car mortgage to get a better rate? At AA Finance Solutions, we have the expertise and knowledge to help you to find the right loan for your needs and budgets. Contact us today. Let us help you to make your home ownership dream a reality.
AA Finance Solutions, your local mortgage broker.
Rock and roll is back in Fremantle with a high-voltage festival Tear Up the Streets. AC/DC and other rock music was featured throughout the afternoon, with bands singing and dancing on the back of moving flatbed trucks. Thousands of local residents packed the streets to join the occasion, with the Premier ringing the Hell's Bell to kick-start the festival.
Tourism WA to put on what's here behind me, a celebration of Western Australia, a celebration of AC/DC. I mean, ultimately, all of us at some point in our life have done something we regret to a Bon Scott song. So it's great to be here to celebrate him, to celebrate the cultural experience of Fremantle and Western Australia, and to continue to attract tourists here to our great state.
Questions over public housing allocations are back on the table, with the number of young adults on the waiting list remaining high. WAMN News exclusively revealed earlier that 5,151 young adults aged between 18 to 30 are waiting, and over 1,300 people are on the priority list. The waiting period has also ballooned to 137 weeks statewide this year. The Premier was asked about whether the government should be allocating specific public housing and queues to young adults.
We're building more public housing, 4,000 additional properties. That takes time, and there's always been a requirement to wait some period of time before you access public housing, but we're doing all we can to get more out there. Well, we have priority lists for those in most need, and then we have the broader wait list for those who might already have somewhere they're living in or somewhere that they can access housing currently. So that's the way the system works. It's a needs-based system.
A man has been arrested and charged following a wild car chase in Perth's north. The incident happened at around 10 a.m. on Thursday when authorities were alerted that an alleged stolen car was travelling on Nearbuck Road. Police turned on the sirens and lights and attempted to pull over the blue Nissan Coupe 37Z, but the male driver allegedly accelerated during the pursuit. The pursuit was immediately managed and monitored by Police Air Wing as the police toured through several suburbs, with authorities alleging the vehicle was travelling more than 45 kilometres above the speed limit. Police will further allege that the car was driven recklessly, going towards oncoming traffic and running red lights. A stinger device was used near Trick to stop the vehicle, and the driver allegedly left the car on foot, proceeding towards Trick Beach. The man was arrested shortly after, with police alleging the man stolen the Nissan Coupe this week near Mandurah. He will appear in court early next month.
The WA Premier has announced a $100 million upgrade to 2 Rockingham high schools, as well as opened the Premier's Reading Challenge. According to the WA Government, the upgrades will be made to Safety Bay Senior High School, Rockingham Senior High School, and Rockingham Senior High School's Education Support Centre. The project will be paid for by the 2023 to 24 state budget. The changes to the schools will aim to give them more flexibility.
Well, there's always, great demands on ed support centres to take in students. Any student with a disability will be educated in an appropriate facility in the public education system. Now, the demand south of the river is I don't know the actual figures, is probably just as strong as the northern suburbs, but of course out Wanneroo Way is a very fast-growing area, so that's why we made that investment into Wanneroo Senior High School.
And now here's AMA WA spokesman Dr. Andrew Miller with his weekly medical and news commentary.
Hi, thanks for your time. The news that the World Health Organisation has declared the COVID emergency over is somewhat surprising, given that we still have a large amount of virus in the community still causing havoc. It's understandable that we need to move to a more long-term phase of living with the virus in the community, but it's not understandable that we seem to be abandoning all protections for people, particularly in places like hospitals where the staff members are no longer required to wear masks. We had 138 deaths notified in Australia last week from COVID, and it's likely that the actual number is higher than that because of the very small amount of testing that's being done and because of the contribution that COVID makes to deaths from other causes, things like heart attack and stroke and so on. So we still need to take this very seriously. We've got 2,236 people in hospital around the country where COVID has either caused their admission or it's complicating their admission of the disease that they have and putting the staff and other patients at risk. We have hundreds of outbreaks in aged care facilities, residential facilities around the country, many of those having to reintroduce testing and masks at the moment. So living with the disease for the long term does not have to be difficult or onerous. It just means having as few infections as possible so that the complications don't build up over time and the likelihood of getting long COVID and causing things like diabetes down the track and other organ problems, thinking problems, tiredness, fast heart rate, shortness of breath, those kind of long COVID issues, the likelihood of those will increase the more often we're infected. So from a practical point of view, I just carry a simple mask with me that fits well to my face, wear that each time I go into a public place. I figure that one day I probably will catch COVID, but I want it to be from someone that I love rather than just from a random stranger when I was popping in to pick up a takeaway coffee. Thanks very much for your time.
That was Dr. Andrew Miller's comment. And with Fremantle charged up this weekend because of high voltage, Melly, I'm going to give you a challenge. Name me your favourite rock bands.
That's a tough question. There's a lot. I like Arctic Monkeys.
Yeah.
And I like Metallica. And I also like Kiss. All very different kinds of rock. But yeah, what about yourself, Ivan?
I'm sorry to say this, but I'm good at asking questions, but not good at answering them.
Okay.
I admit that, by the way. AC/DC is the only one that I can name. Apart from that, Elvis, I'm not so sure. Does it count? Does it count?
I'm not a musical expert, so I guess that's up to our audience to decide.
You decide and you hit me up with the comments, whether I'm right or wrong, sorry. We'll recap this week's top stories again in just a moment.
Right now, here's Madeline Lombardi with Western Perspective.
Thanks, Ivan and Melly. Welcome to Western Perspective. I'm Madeline Lombardi. WAMN News caught up with Leon Rury from Haka for Life to discuss the recent passing of a leader within their organisation, Jamie Schuster. In Candid Moments, Mr. Rury uncovers memories of Jamie's life and the legacy he left behind. Okay, so Leon, it's been quite a while since we've spoken, since October last year. Can you tell us a little bit about what Haka for Life has been doing since the time we've been away?
Yeah, we were quite active last time that we saw, with the tragedy that took place in Perth, and obviously our hearts have been with Michelle Turby and the family there and sort of things that are continuing there. But for Haka for Life, our focus then shifted into Mardi Gras. We were a part of World Pride, and proud to say that we put a float in the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras each and every year, and it was great for us to return back there to Sydney. We had a 80-person float this year. It was one of the most diverse, probably the most diverse float entry that we've had ever as part of our participation there, which is all around suicide prevention. So we're quite busy with that. Our team was busy. World Pride had 1.6 million people there this year, so it was something really, really special that we're a part of. And all the indicators are there for us to continue creating conversations and holding space for the LGBT community as well too. So we're very active there. And then only last week we were part of the Anzac Day, Indigenous Anzac Day service that we held for only the second time ever at the Supreme Court Gardens here in Perth, which is something that we're so passionate about, about recognising the Anzacs, but also about having our cultures recognised on Anzac Day, because currently the Indigenous cultures of both Australia and New Zealand are not included on main day Anzac Day services in Australia, and it's something that I really want to be a part of Anzac Days moving forward.
I think that's something that we spoke about last week, or on Anzac Day. We had that conversation about including more multicultural backgrounds and, of course, Indigenous cultures as well within the Anzac Day conversation, because they are a huge part of Anzac Day and the history celebrated around that as well. So we've recently learned of the passing of Jamie Schuster, a leader in the Haka for Life movement. Can you tell us about how his death has impacted the Haka for Life community and your community as well?
Yeah, it's been emotional. You're asking the question. We're standing on a spot where I met Jamie here, literally right here, on Anzac Day 2017, and it's been heartbreaking. It's been hard for many of our Haka for Life family and our extended community here in Perth, our Noongar community. We created the world's first ever haka and corroboree together as well, and he was an instrumental part of that. We travelled to America together. We would have done the world's first haka on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, as well as the first ever Anzac Day Haka for Life, which really birthed the opportunity for haka and corroboree to be, to be able to be present on Anzac Day. But it's been deeply emotional. It comes in waves, and times of sadness, much sadness there at this time. But sadly, it's something that happens far too often in our country, and it's something that we're still a strong advocate to stand that people choose life. This passing of Jamie is a prime example that suicide does not discriminate. People, no matter who you are or where you are, struggle with different things in life, and our brother Jamie was no different to me or to you or to anybody out there. So it's important for us to be able to create these conversations, to normalise these conversations, so that we remove the uncomfortability of conversations where someone, be it Jamie or someone else, has taken their life, where people are not sure how to have these conversations, and they quite often won't have them. They'll avoid trying to talk through the emotions that come up, the reasons why, and I just think that there's a great opportunity for us to celebrate his life and to celebrate those that have taken their lives. It's many people are critical of people that take their lives, not me. That's just not a thing that's present at all. It's to understand and connect and celebrate his life, and realise that there's opportunities for us to have conversations with people, and if there's a learning out of this situation, it's to check in regularly on how your friends are.
I have to agree with you there. I think one thing that from listening to what you were saying, that uncomfortability that people have about talking about suicide, and that can be quite hard to really talk about those conversations. And what Haka for Life celebrates is, in particular, men's and everybody's mental health. It's important to keep that conversation going, which is why I thank you for talking with us today, and also, talking about Jamie's life. And I want to ask you next, in your own words, what were some impactful things Jamie implemented as a leader in the Haka for Life community and group in celebration of his life?
Yeah, he was really dedicated to what we call rangatahi, to young people, to the youth. He just had a real heart for the youth, and part of his dream was to see that we pass culture on to youth here, that they had a foundation to create and build their lives from. He instilled culture in us, the importance of what we call tikanga, of protocols, and why they remain in place. There was a certain level of, I'd say professionalism, but a certain level of commitment that Jamie brought toward our cultural exchanges. That I remember as an example, just here behind us at Kings Park in 2018 for the world's first ever haka and corroboree for an Anzac Day service, and I'll forever remember. I was talking to the media and sorting out those sorts of things. I had my job, and the brother had his job, and his job was to connect our culture and our people to what was about to take place. And I remember looking back across the grass there and just seeing him in all his glory. Not that he did it for glory, he did it because he loved our culture so much. But just to see him standing there with his taiaha and everybody ready, and it's just something that I'll never ever forget. The commitment that he gave when we would haka, I'll never forget here, our first ever haka. The scene that he set for us as our kaiwero to be able to haka, and that's one thing that I'll always remember of him. And then his gentleness. He had this extraordinary guy that could be deemed as intimidating when he's in his full presence of taiaha and maurako, and then there was the playful side, the goofy side of him, that he had the world's worst dad jokes. It was just such it's like an enigma. There's one extreme to the other, and there's this fierce warrior, and then there's this man that's got the world's driest dad jokes, and the playfulness, and his ability to listen, and he would make time stand still when you were in conversations, especially if you're expressing things that are on your heart. You really had a heart for people. That's one thing that I'll always remember about him, and I know that people that know Jamie would absolutely relate to that. He just had a beautiful heart for listening to people, and those are the things that we'll carry forward in our recognition and honour of Jamie forever.
He sounds like a beautiful person, someone who had a lot of power and leadership as well within the community. I want to know, is there a memorial service coming up for Jamie, and when will it be held? Yeah, we've got a funeral service for Jamie here in Perth on Tuesday. This Tuesday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. at Pittaroo Cemetery, and that's a service for people here in Perth because he is well known in this community. He's worked for many years with Rio Tinto up in the FIFO industry, and his death has really impacted and affected a lot of people. Firstly, his partner Megan and the boys, and obviously his mum and dad and his children back in New Zealand, and many people. So we're very honoured to be able to have the opportunity to farewell Jamie here in Perth, and so grateful to the family that they've been able to organise that. And then we're actually a big group of us are travelling back to New Zealand to take his body back home and to return him back to his people, the Te Arawa tribe. So it's still a fair journey ahead of us, but an opportunity for us to really farewell a rangatira, somebody that's so special.
And that was Leon Ruri from Haka for Life. You can read our weekly premium news stories on the WAMN Extra News Club, supporting independent local news and keeping democracy strong. And now, here's Leo Puglisi with what's coming up on 6 News tonight.
Thanks, guys. On 6 News, Scott Morrison, believed to be the next Liberal MP to go after ex-Minister Stuart Robert quit Parliament, triggering another by-election. Job seekers set to increase by up to $40 a fortnight, with power bill relief also expected as Tuesday's budget approaches. And King Charles III crowned amid anti-monarchy protests in the UK, 52 arrested during the coronation. Watch live on our YouTube channel and our website, 6newsau.com. For now, though, it is back to you.
Thanks, Leo. And that's all from Western Perspective this week. We'll be back with you next Sunday. Until then, Ivan and Melly, it's back to you two.
Thanks, Maddie. And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website, wamnnews.com.au.
Don't forget to subscribe to the WAMN Extra News Club so we can continue our work in the community. Full details on wamnnews.com.au/news/extra. From Melly and myself, wish you good health, good night. See you next Sunday.
Thanks for watching.